Brody. I am the Director of Museum Services at the Flint Children's Museum. Thank you, Gen 4 Committee, for allowing us to present tonight. We sincerely appreciate the opportunity. And Bob, I would say that the opportunity for partnership is definitely there at the Flint Children's Museum, so thank you for that, too. So as we move through the presentation, I'm first going to tell you a little bit about who the Flint Children's Museum is and what we do, how we think we can impact more children in the community, specifically the grant goals, which you can see listed there. Then we'll talk about how we'll measure success, why our approach is innovative, and then of course I'll take any of your questions at the end. So first of all, the Flint Children's Museum exists in the community to inspire a love for learning through exploration and hands-on play. Many of you probably know the benefits of interactive learning. Children learn best when they interact with whatever it is they're learning. Specifically, it stimulates curiosity for children, it improves understanding, and it strengthens retention. Last year, the Flint Children's Museum reached 42,000 families and children, 65% of which were either from Genesee County and the city of Flint. So how are we going to impact more? Hopefully, the partnership with Gen Forward would enable us to create collaborative programming with the cultural center institutions to enhance learning for youth, outreach to at-risk youth in the form of financial assistance for admission and transportation to the Flint Children's Museum, and the development of new and innovative exhibits at the Flint Children's Museum. So, goal number one, collaborative programming. The Flint Children's Museum could supplement cultural center institution programs where they would produce and provide hands-on learning activities for some of the younger learners. Examples could include, and these are just examples that we thought would be appropriate, space programming with the Sloan when they bring in their exhibit March through June. We could do in this, I guess it would be the third quarter of the year, we could do acting with the Flint Youth Theater, July through September, and then in the fourth quarter, we could do play projects with the Flint Institute of Art, October through December. And again, these are concepts that we think are appropriate and that would be impactful to the community. What are the benefits of the institutional collaboration? We would connect at-risk youth and their families to resources in the community that they otherwise may not be connected to. We would enable children of all ages to benefit from unduplicated programs in our community, and we would strengthen community impact intentionally through our collaboration of institutions. Goal number two of the grant, of our grant application and of the grant funding would be outreach to at-risk youth. Specifically, admission assistance to the museum and transportation assistance. Funding constraints for field trips have prohibited some of our visitors from coming, and we know this because we followed up with them and they have told us they would love to come, but financially there is a barrier. So part of this grant would go towards financial assistance and admission to the museum. We also would like to reach out into the community for those who can't make it to the museum and take our activities to them and do hands-on demonstrations and activities with the children in their classrooms. And number three, the development of exhibits at the museum. The exhibits that are there now are beyond their life cycle. They're wonderful exhibits, but they have endured a lot of wear and tear from the children over the last 10 years. The relevance of educational content is critical. The museum exhibits what we would hope would happen with the funding, if granted funding. We would seek out a consultant for the Association of Children's Museums, and we would bring them to the museum. They would assess what our current exhibits, if they're relevant, if they're effective, they would identify emerging trends in our field, and then they would make recommendations for new and permanent exhibits at the museum. So how would we measure the success? We would get visitor feedback through our partnerships at the cultural center institutions. We would look at first-time encounters with the cultural center institutions as well as the Flint Children's Museum. We would count the number of youth served, and we would look at the value added for all the learning experiences. Why do we think our approach is innovative? We're connecting community resources in a new way. We're delivering hands-on programming to all ages, where typically the Flint Children's Museum looks at 0 to 10. And we would develop hands-on learning experiences for the next generation of learners. So again, the grant goals that we see for the Gen Forward grant of 2014 include the collaborative programming, $5,000 towards that, outreach to at-risk youth, $5,000 toward that, and the development of new and innovative exhibits at the museum. And that takes us to $14,000. When we first made the application, that was the understanding of the funds that were available, so that is why we're there. So with that, I thank you for listening. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to do my best to answer them.
Hi. So, and a lot of the other programs, I noticed they had collaborative partnerships and other sources of funding for their programs. So they'll probably still happen whether or not it's funded through this. Is this a program that will be specifically funded only if this, or are you looking at other sources as a potential funder?
Yeah, if without this funding, it wouldn't stop us. We would move forward.
Okay.
And do what we could with both. Yep.
Can you talk about your in-class or your outreach, in particular in-classroom demonstrations you were talking about? How would that work? Would you target certain schools, or would you just open it up countywide? What would be your approach to that?
Yep, we would target certain schools. We would be looking at the most at-risk students. The statistics, 84% of the children within the city of Flint are at risk. So we would target them, and we would design the activities and the programs around the school's curriculum. So depending on what they're doing in class, we would adjust around that and we would deliver it to them.
Do you do that now?
We do, yes. Our programs are somewhat in line with the pacing guides of the Flint Community Schools. That is our goal, ultimately, is to get it in line so that the teachers can call and say, yep, we're working on science today, and yep, that's what the Flint Children's Museum is doing as well. Right now, we do have the ability to cater to them. For example, if a teacher calls and says that we're working with money, we want you to talk about math and money with the kids, then we will design a program around that. That's a little more work though, so if we were just in line, it would just be a lot less work.
Point of clarification,
Yep.
Shannon, to your question, the Flint Children's Museum is not currently doing any outreach in the form of in-classroom demonstrations because there is not funding to support it at this time.
Shannon,
what is your, I didn't understand what your collaborative programming with the cultural center. So like you had on the thing, the space exhibit at Sloan opens Friday. So how would you do an additional space program, but it was at the Flint Children's Museum so that kids could go to Sloan and then see more space stuff at the museum? Or is it you're sending kids through the financial aid thing to Sloan to see the exhibit? Like, what is the collaboration?
go ahead. Sue, did you want to go
We
ahead?
have a slide that gives an example. The museum is actually planning a space-oriented exhibit that will open in April, which was completely coincidental because we did not know what was planned at Sloan. But the concept of this collaborative programming has to do with actual hands-on demonstrations for the pre-K through second grade audience. And our thought was that if we work together, we will be able to provide learning experiences from 0 to 13.
But these are different things than what Sloan's space thing is doing?
Correct. That's correct. So, for example, shown on screen, we could do activities like gravity demonstration, learning to use a telescope, a day in the life of an astronaut, a constellation demonstration. These are all hands-on activities that would be targeted to the pre-K through second grade that we think would supplement the more sophisticated exhibit that targets older children.
What would happen at the children's center?
This concept is actually that we would go there.
Representative, ask a question. Okay. I get in trouble. Seriously, the 3-year-old kids have not taken, and we want to expose our kids to this. When we get this grant or not, we're still going to need that. So if you work with privates, then call me Monday.
This might be the most fruitful thing that comes out of this. It's a collaboration between these 5 organizations.
But I really think that we need to do that. Because there's other resources as you lie. And we may have filled the gap to getting kids exposed to another piece at a younger age. Like what you guys did, I didn't think about that.
Yep.
Thanks.
Anything else? Yep.
Not that I particularly care, but some people might. There was an asterisk on one of those things when it talked, and specifically you talked about hiring a consultant to come in. I don't care if you use the funds for this, if you were granted for that, but is that something that the FCM, is that what they're going to take care of, and our funding is going to go specifically towards the actual creation of these things, or would these funds be used to bring in a consultant?
The Gen Forward funds would be directed to bringing the consultant in, and then we, the Flint Children's Museum, would subsidize that,
Okay.
because it wouldn't cover it all.
Okay.
So the Flint Children's Museum would absorb whatever cost was beyond that. It would
Okay.
help us define what the layout should be and be prepared to move forward for the next generation.
But the cost of the actual exhibits themselves, that's gonna, okay,
That's us.
okay,
Yep.
all right.
Yep.
Yeah, so I have two questions. The first is, what is the average attendance at the Children's Museum?
Okay, the average attendance, so last year was 42,000, and,
Can you break it down for me by week?
22,000, say again?
Can you break it down for me by week or by month, whichever one
It's
Uh,
seasonal. The correct
That's
answer is that it's
it,
seasonal. So if I were to give you an average number by month, we have to understand that our peak seasons are really from February through May, which is peak field trip season. We tend to slow down a little bit over the summer months. And then here, towards the end of the year and during the holidays, we have peaks and valleys. But 42,000 visitors annually, approximately half of that number represents children. 65% is Genesee County and the city of Flint. And then we have another 17% that represents the remainder of Michigan. We also have about 2% of international visitors, so we're reaching.
And then the follow-up to that is, you mentioned going out into the communities to reach not just a partnership with the cultural center, and I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about that, and exactly what those numbers look like. So like, what areas of the community are you going into, and about how many children do you plan to touch with that outreach?
Okay, so we would be going into any community that is interested, at-risk youth, and that would want us to come in there. We would design the programming to their needs, essentially, and the cost of that is probably, it depends, it's around $150, but we could reach more children if we were there. It's $150 a classroom approximately, but if we were able to go into multiple classrooms throughout the day, that would reduce the cost. It's about $150 for 30 children.
Do you have any idea where you would start, or like, who would be the initial school that you've had conversations with?
We have a list of the schools who are not able to visit us this year because they have funding constraints. And our approach with this, because we don't have any specific commitments at this time, so it is a proposal, is that we would take this $5,000 and we would communicate with the early learning centers and with the schools to find out what their preference is. Is it their preference to receive financial assistance, to be transported to the museum for that experience, or if they do not have transportation available, we will go to them. It's, as Kimberly said, it's about $150 for us to do the outreach, to go on site, to deliver the programs to them. It's approximately $100 for children to be bused to the museum, approximately 30, to actually experience programs at the museum and explore the exhibits. I think we would deliver this in a fashion based on what their preference is. So we're meeting everyone's needs.
Thank you, Flint Children's